Welcome, Risers. It's that time once again for the Agent Rise podcast. I'm your host, Neil Mathweg, and I'm flying solo today. Mindy will be back in 2 weeks. We got 2 solo episodes coming up here back to back. So this week, we're continuing our conversation talking about how to get listings in today's market. And today, we're specifically talking about working with for sale by owners and with expireds. And the exciting thing that we have right now in this market is for sale by owners need us again, and there's actually expireds happening in some markets, not in all markets, but in some markets. And for, I'd say for probably the last 5 years or so, expireds have just been kind of obsolete. Maybe it's even longer than that. When you have low inventory and houses are selling in 3 minutes or 3 days, it doesn't leave much room for expired listings. Well, I think that is beginning to change. And so expireds are now back and something that you could look forward to. And I'll give you some tactics today to be able to reach those expireds. Also, for sale by owners are back as a possibility for us to be reaching out to. For sale by owners need us now. And when the market was so hot, a lot of them think they can do it on their own. And so in today's market, we're starting to see the for sale by owners come back as a possibility for us to reach them. So let's talk some strategies here and get into this a little bit of how we can work with for sale by owners and with expireds. I have approached them in multiple different ways. They're really down to phone or mail. When you call a FSBO, you're most likely going to get action and you're going to get the listing quicker than if you were to mail. However, I have found that mailing allows me to stay more consistent. I could set up a mailing program, a 6-week mailing program to an expired, and have an office admin, somebody on support, help me with that mailing. We would look up the listings and make sure that they're not active, and then we would put the letter in the mail. And we have a 6-week mailing campaign that's inside Agent Rise, and if you're a member of Agent Rise, you have access to that. And this mailing campaign, again, it allows you to stay consistent, because what I found is when I would, well, first of all, I never liked calling expireds, but when I did call them, I found it that I had a hard time staying consistent with it, because as soon as I was busy, I didn't have time to make those calls anymore. And when I wasn't busy, I had no problem making those calls. So it was inconsistency in my plan of reaching those expired. So that's the reason why I love mailing. Now, I want to say that mailing does not produce the same results, or I think you got to give the nod to the phone over mail. But again, it helps you stay consistent. That's definitely worth it, because consistency is everything. Another thing that I learned with expireds is that a lot of them don't list right away. Some of them do. Some of them will expire with one agent and the next day be looking for a new agent and want to get it relisted. But what I found in when I was working with more expireds, and again, these were from the years of 2013 to the years of 2018. What I was seeing with most of those expireds is they would call 6 months to a year later. I remember at one time I had a listing that they called me and said, "Neil, we've been getting your mail and we're thinking about listing the house again, and we wanted to interview you." And I got there, and the mail that they had on their counter was from when I was at a previous company. All the marketing was outdated. It was like well over a year old. And so just remember that a lot of expireds don't relist. They take a break. They change their mind. They're not going to sell now, and they're going to take a break, and they just kind of wait, right? So just know that that some expireds take a long time to relist. That also brings up a point too, to solicit and go after the old expired, somebody that was expired 6 months to a year ago. And I think one of the best things to do with the old expireds is to match them up with a buyer that you have. And so to call that expired and say, "Hey, I'm currently working with a buyer that's looking in your area, and I see that your house was listed 6 months ago and it expired. Are you still thinking about selling?" And if you hear back from the seller, great, you might have an opportunity to match make. Another strategy around this, and this doesn't help you get the expired listing, but it does help your buyer get in the door, and that is to reach out to the previous listing agent. And I know that sounds crazy, right? But to reach out to the previous listing agent and and get the scoop from the previous listing agent. They might say, oh gosh, we took it off the market for some months because they're putting new flooring in and they're getting in a new roof and they're doing some other upgrades to the home, and they just needed to take a pause from the market, and then they plan on coming back. And so that seller would probably never call you, right? But if you call the previous listing agent, then that previous listing agent could give you the scoop faster than you could probably get it by calling the seller. And also, this is a goodwill for other agents in your market. So that's a good strategy to use around expireds, where you're in a position where you have a buyer that would maybe fit that home, and help get that buyer into the home would be to contact that listing agent directly to help you get into the home. But if you're soliciting for a listing and it's an expired listing, you don't want to call the previous listing agent. All right. So I want to make sure I draw the line there, that this is for you with a buyer to get into the property. Another thing that we did with our mailing campaign around expireds is we had a good 6-week mailing campaign, and you got to put good call to actions in the mail, right? In your letters. And so my call to action for our letters, one of them was to get our special report called 11 Critical Questions to Ask When Hiring Your Next Real Estate Agent. And the position that I took is that I was an expert at selling houses that other agents couldn't. And these are the questions you need to ask when hiring your next agent to make sure you get a good quality agent to be able to sell your house. Now, obviously, this positioned me as the expert, right? And it was weird. I never had anybody ask me the questions. And I was all prepared for it and had all my answers ready to go. But nobody ever asked me the questions, which then tells me that they just trust that I have the right answers. So they're not even going to ask me those questions. So it worked very well. And again, this positioned us as the authority. It gave us a great call to action, and it also gave them a great tool to use when hiring that next real estate agent. So that's a great way to position yourself. And again, we've got all the letters and that report, everything inside Agent Rise. If you become a member of Agent Rise, you can get access to all of that. Another thing too, when calling expireds, it's great to position yourself not as a know-it-all, but rather as somebody that is there to help them get this house sold. You get to play Monday morning quarterback. That's what I love about expireds. So it's all about the quality questions that you ask. It's not about you coming across as a know-it-all, or you are the answer to their problems. It's not about that. You'll get there, but right away, it's all about asking questions. It's about learning what went wrong. Why didn't the house sell? Was it the other agent's fault? Because obviously they're going to probably tell you that. And that then allows you to see what was missed. And again, allows you to play Monday morning quarterback, where you get to then say, well, this is what I would do. This is what I would do different. The other thing that I love about expireds is a lot of times they were overpriced. They had an opinion about a price, and their agent had an opinion about a price, and they could never come together. They were always button heads. And the homeowner just never wanted to reduce the price because they felt like the agent wasn't doing their job, and that was the reason why it didn't sell. But when you come back in and after that listing is expired and you're now meeting with that homeowner, I'm telling you, they're more apt to listen to you about pricing, especially if you're confirming the same kind of pricing that the previous agent was confirming. And this, again, will allow you to position yourself and be in that place where you can offer them the advice that they need to hear, that they didn't want to hear before, but they now hear it, and they're now going to take it, and they're now going to price right and get that home sold. And so the other areas to shine here, you get to listen to what went wrong before. You also, I remember one time I had an expired complain about the other agent and say, yeah, they never showed it. There's 20 showings and they never showed the house, and they only did one open house, and they did all of these things that the seller was upset about. But when listening to her, I was thinking, well, most agents don't show their own listings. I mean, today's world with buyer's agents, most of the buyers have representation and their buyer's agent is showing the property. So that's something that's kind of normal. And then the other thing too is to do one open house at the very beginning. Again, that's a very normal thing. So this, what she was complaining about with her previous agent, tipped off a red flag for me and said, "Oh my gosh, I got to talk to her about this to make sure I don't become that agent that she badmouths down the road." Right. So I had to have a conversation with her around pricing, around open houses, and around how the showings work. And asking the right questions allowed that to come out and allowed me to be able to address it. So again, when meeting with expireds, it's all about the questions that you're asking to understand the current situation and understand how you could best serve them. All right, let's switch gears now to talking about for sale by owners. With for sale by owners, again, you can have a mailing campaign or you can have a calling campaign, and you're going to call and follow up. I recommend for the for sale by owners, I recommend the phone and approaching them over phone because there's a lot of follow-up that needs to take place. You could have a mailing program work as well, but I really, really believe in the phone. And I think that there's two scripts that are the most common scripts for calling for sale by owners. And that first script is the one where you maybe pretend you have a buyer, which please don't ever do that. But I know that there's agents that do. And please do not do that. But you're calling the homeowner to say, or the for sale by owner to say that I have a buyer and the buyer is looking in your area. And I was wondering if I could come over and tour your home with the buyer. And then some agents say that the buyer's out of town, so I'm going to come over and tour it on my own and then get them the information. And between you and I think those are the agents that are fibbing a little bit here. So make sure you're not doing that. Have a buyer that's interested in their home. And if that's the case, you can call and work on behalf of your buyer to get into that home and then let the chips fall where they may. If their buyer's not interested and then you end up talking to them about listing, that's a very common, to me, it feels like bait and switch. All right. So as you can tell, I'm not a big fan of that approach, although it is a popular approach and it does get you in the door and it does work. So it's not like one of those ones that I don't want to share with you, but I think there's a better way to do it. And I think the better way to do it is to say, I'm not one of those agents. I'm not one of the agents that's going to pretend to have a buyer and come and tour your home. Instead, I would like to help you any way that I can. And I know you want to list right now for sale by owner, and I totally respect that. I just want to be here as a resource for you. So if you need any forms, if you need any recommendations for an inspector or a lender or anything, if you need any help around marketing, if you want me to look at your marketing and give you suggestions, anything that I can do to help you, I just want you to know that I'm here for you. And then when the time comes, if you're going to list your home, if you decide not to sell it for sale by owner and the time comes, then I hope that I would be one of the agents that you would interview. And that's all I'm asking for. And then from there, it's all about follow-up. It's checking in with them after this last weekend. You saw that they did an open house. It's calling them on Monday and asking them how the open house went and if they have any offers yet. It's calling them a couple weeks later, and when you see a new listing that pops up in the area, you call and let them know that there's a new listing, that there's a competitor on the market, and you just want to make sure you saw it. It's just the constant follow up to see how they're doing and see what you can do to be helping them. And again, this is the difference in the two different scripts. I mean, you could call and pretend you have a buyer. Again, please don't do that, but that's an approach. Or you could call with your buyer, right? But then at that point, you're getting into that kind of that bait and switch area. And I don't like that. I mean, it's all about building trust with these people, right? And if you're baiting and switching, it's not going to help you build up trust. So I like the approach to come across and say, you know what? I don't have a buyer. I'm not one of those agents that is going to pretend to have a buyer. Instead, I want to be here as a resource. I want to help you any way that I can. And then if the time comes where you go to list and sell your home, you're unable to sell it and you want to list it and go on the market, then I would love to be one of the agents that is, got my name in the ring here and got my name in the hat and can help you And I want to be one of the agents that has their name in the hat, and hopefully will get drawn when it comes time to sell your home. And I would love for that opportunity to be interviewed for that. So it's just a very easy approach, and a laid back approach. Now, another thing to do with this is to send what we have the FSBO mailing program. It's 6 letters. We mail it in different sizes of envelopes. The first envelope is a big envelope to kind of stand out, and we put a big special report in there, and we stand out. And then we go down to a smaller envelope, and then we go to a postcard, and then back to an envelope. And so we have this whole mailing program with different letters, different call to actions, and this works. It's a longer game. It's also more expensive, right? You got to print all that stuff and have it all ready and then mail it all. So it gets more expensive. And just picking up the phone is free, right? Now, to go with free, because it's not necessarily free, I would recommend that you either get Vulcan 7 or you get Red X. Those are the 2 most popular ones. I'm not an affiliate of either one or have any endorsement with them, but those are 2 popular sites that will get you all of the information, contact information. It'll tell you their cell number, their email address, if they're on the do not call list, all of that information. They'll scrub it all, and then you get all of these leads of these are the for sale by owners or the expireds. Another note around FSBOs that works really well is to send our I have a buyer letter. We have an Agent Rise I have a buyer letter. And this is if you have a buyer, right? And this letter could go to FSBOs. This letter could go to homeowners. You could search the MLS for like property. So let's say that your buyer is looking for a $400,000 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom ranch with a 3-car garage. You could go back 7 years, because after 7 years, people are most likely to move. So go back to 2017 and look for the houses in 2017 that were that 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 3-car garage ranch. And obviously the price is not going to be $400,000. The price will probably be $300,000 or $250,000, whatever it was 7 years ago. And then you do a search for all of those houses that recently sold or that sold 7 years ago that match your criteria. And then you send the I have a buyer letter based off of that search. So then you're not spraying and praying for your buyers, but you're actually reaching out to the homeowners that might be likely to sell, which then that turns into a for sale by owner situation, and so to say. All right. So again, these are some different things that you can add to get more listings. And the I have a buyer letter too, we really clearly state in there that this is not going to be a bait and switch, that we are working for our buyer. So you have to stay in tune with that. When you're working with your buyer, you got to keep working with your buyer. Otherwise, you bait and switch, and now you just lost that integrity with that homeowner. So if you're using the I have a buyer letter and you're reaching those homeowners with that I have a buyer letter, you want to stay consistent with that. You don't want to bait and switch, and instead go show that buyer the home. If it doesn't work out for your buyer, if it's not the right house, which it may not be, right? You're kind of shooting in the dark to try to find them a house, right? And you've got the criteria and the ranch, and you see the previous listing, you show them all of that, but then you get there and there's just something that they don't like about the house. All right. And so then it's not a good fit for your buyer. At that point, call the homeowner back and just say, we did the showing, everything went great. However, they don't like that I don't know, whatever, that it's a corner lot, let's say. They don't like the lot. There's just something about it that they don't like it, and I'm sorry, it's just not a right fit. However, I will keep this property in mind for other buyers. I work with a lot of buyers, and I'll definitely keep this in mind. And you let me know if there's anything that I can be doing to help you. All right, so you just leave it at that. And what usually happens is the homeowner calls you back a couple weeks later and says, you know what, we're thinking about selling. We got to get this house sold. We decided we want to sell, and we really appreciated your approach. Would you consider listing our house? And I'm telling you, it works this way. You don't bait and switch. You build trust, and that trust pays off by them calling you back. All right. Now, some would tell you that's a horrible advice because you should bait and switch. And if the buyer's not interested, talk to them about listing. You never know. I've usually had that backfire, and especially the way we wrote the letter, it doesn't leave us room for that. So I would recommend that you stay true to the letter and stay true to what you said in that letter. And that is, sorry, this didn't work for this buyer, but let me keep looking looking for you. I'll see if I can find you another buyer. And then get busy matchmaking. Get busy trying to find them another buyer. And then in that process, you'll be surprised. They'll call you and list with you. All right. So much more to talk about around FSBOs and expireds, but I'm going to leave it at that. Come and join us inside Agent Rise, where we help you get more listings, get more FSBOs and expireds to list with you. And again, it's all opportunities that are right in front of you in today's challenging market. So join us. Go to agentrisecoaching.com and schedule a discovery call. And we'd love to talk with you about your business and help you get going here in 2024 to get more listings. All right. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day. And like always, remember to be the reason somebody smiles today.